I am very much pleased to introduce a very important session, which is digital transformation that works. We know not every digital transformation works, and we've seen figures of, unfortunately, failure despite all of the investments. Dr. Darren Pulsipher, who is the Chief Solution Architect for the public sector at Intel, he's gonna take us through what it takes to align people, a process, policy, and technology for sustainable change. Dr. Darren is a technologist, he's a storyteller, he's a trusted advisor to government and leaders around the world. He has been leading digital transformation scale, and one of his initiatives were with the government of Canada, the US Department of Defense, IBM, GE, and others. We're gonna hear from him talking about what it takes to turn technology into action and put the people at the heart of it. He's gonna share lessons learned today with years of experience guiding governments through complex transformation. Without any further ado, please join me in welcoming warmly Dr. Darren to the stage.
Thanks, Grace. Thank you, Grace. Yeah, it's easier to say Dr. Darren than Dr. Pulsipher. And anyway, Dr. Pulsipher is my father, so I go by Dr. Darren because people have a hard time with Pulsipher. I don't know why. It's not that hard. Well, it is for a lot of people. So today I want to talk about digital transformation that works. I've been doing my job that I have right now, which I absolutely love, for Intel. I've been doing it for about 10 years. Before that, I've run, I was a CIO of a juice company of all things. And before I was CIO of a juice company, I ran an engineering team that did big data analytics in the cloud, like at the immersion of the cloud. So I went from high tech to selling juice to Intel, and it's given me a really broad perspective of digital transformation and to see how things work outside of high tech and in government. And I've been doing a lot with government over the last 8 years or so. And I really enjoy it. I remember the day, March 13th, 2020. Who knows what that day was? COVID. I remember it was a Friday the 13th, which is a bad day in the United States, right? That's, Friday the 13th, and my kids came home from school. And I'm like, what are you guys doing home? Right? And that's when COVID hit. What was interesting about COVID at the time is it stimulated hyper-convergence of digital transformation. My phone was ringing off the hook from people that I'd already been engaged with, like the CIO of Department of Navy at the United States. She calls me up and says, Darren, how do I go from having 40,000 people online working from home to 400,000 people working from home, and you got 2 weeks? Give me a plan. I'm like, are you crazy? How am I going to do that? And I said, give me 24 hours. I'll call all my other CIO buddies, and we'll come up with some strategies. This is when I learned about the impediments to change. COVID gave us a purpose. We had to keep operating. And what we found was technology was not the answer. We came up with crazy strategies like you only got on the VPN 2 hours a day, that's it. And you got on there based on your last name. And that's how we worked at it first, until we came up with different strategies, alternating, going into the office, coming home. We came with all these new processes until we could get new technology put into place to help Department of Navy. There's so many other examples that we learned from it. And some of the things that I learned through that hyper change that happened was, why couldn't we do this before? Why did we take roadmaps that were 1 to 5 years long, that always dragged out longer? Why could we do it in 3 weeks when before we couldn't do it in 2 years? Because there were some impediments there that kept us from doing that. So I started doing some research. I was working on my PhD at the time, and my PhD dissertation was on impediments to converged OT and IT cybersecurity best practices. So a big, long title. But basically, I was looking at finding out why can't people change in big organizations. And this is what we found out. You need, these three things can slow you down. Desirability, I need to have the desire to change. It needs to be feasible, and it needs to be viable. I have to be able to actually do it. COVID hits, huge desire. Feasibility, it was already there. We already knew how to do it, right? And was it viable? Well, when COVID first hit, it wasn't viable because I didn't have enough resources, I didn't have enough hardware, I didn't have the right technology, but we made it work because we found ways around it. So when we look at this and we compare it to the number of digital transformation things that fail, over 70% fail, digital transformations. It's huge. Why? Because they didn't address all three of these things. So when we started looking at this, I'd already been doing digital transformation in organizations. Some were successful, some not as much. We kind of changed our approach to helping organizations through their digital transformation. And we started looking at it from the lens of these, what we call the 4 dimensions of digital transformation. People, process, policy, because I'm working in government, policy always has a big play, and technology. And technology is always last. And I can't remember, was it Ramco that said you started with technology first and then you switched? Because you learned, right? Yeah. It's called shiny object syndrome. And CIOs get it really big because they read CIO magazine. And in CIO magazine, some marketeering guy up there, he gets up there and says, hey, the latest and greatest thing is this. You need to go do this. And the CIO looks at that. I'm behind everybody else. I'm not going to be able to compete. My CEO is going to ask me a question about this, so I got to do something about this. So he gets a tiger team put together. They go explore it. They spend millions of dollars testing it out, and it goes nowhere. I've seen this time and time again. That's when you put technology first. So when we look at people, process, and policy, and then technology, we're putting people at the core foundation of the digital transformation. And what I have learned from years of doing this with lots of organizations throughout the world, both government and private sector, is that people element is number 1. But how do I reliably do this over and over again? That's what we learned. Interestingly enough, on the policy side, this one was really fascinating. I was working with the Canadian government at the time, coming up with their multi-hybrid cloud strategy. And we ran into a huge problem. They had no way, because their laws and their policies were so strict, they had no way of actually purchasing cloud services. It was actually against the law in Canada. So we had to, talk to the legislature and say, guys, you said you wanted to do cloud service, but there's no way to do it because of the policies that you've established. So we have to look at it holistically. And that's what we want to do. So when we started looking at this holistically, we came up with this interesting concept. We call it the 6 pillars of digital transformation. I've heard the word pillars a lot today, and ours is a little bit different than most. Here, we're looking at what key technologies, starting at the, where I shouldn't start, but what key technologies is driving or enabling digital transformation with people, process, and policy. And we came up with these 6. And we had some really big knockdown, drag-out discussions, right, on one of the pillars. And I'll let you guys guess which one it is. But first we'll start with modernized computing. Cloud computing, quantum computing, modern DevSecOps all fit in this pillar, right? The next one is edge computing. We all know what edge computing is. If Aramco's here, we know what edge computing is because you got more edge computing than probably anyone else in the world. Where I'm actually have sensors out at the edge at oil wells or at platforms, wherever, right? I've got a lot of IoT, a lot of operational technology. That's the edge computing aspect. Artificial intelligence, this is the one that I had a hard time with. I think artificial intelligence is a shiny word. It's the word of the day. Everyone likes it. Everyone's spending millions of dollars on AI, but I think it's too narrow. This one to me should be data analytics. Because when people think of AI right now, what do they think of? ChatGPT, right? Everyone's thinking of Chat or Gemini or one of the other models. It's a chat bot. Guess what? The world is changing because of that, but there's so many other models behind that, not just AI models, but data analytics. So this one, I lost the battle on because of marketeering. I'll relent to that. That's not a problem. The next one, cybersecurity, so important. We need to make sure that whatever solutions we have that cybersecurity element in it. Data management, one that's commonly overmissed, but we talked a lot about today. If my data is not good, then I can't really do much of anything effectively. I'm just wandering around blind. I can't see what's really going on. And the last one is advanced communications, where now I'm dealing with satellite, I'm dealing with 5G, Wi-Fi 7, the list goes on and on. There's lots of new technologies. Now, the reason I bring up these 6 pillars here, they all look like technology, but it turns out people and process are key elements of these as well. So people, process, policy, and technology form each one of these pillars. And what we learned really fascinating about this was every time I engaged with a customer and they were building out new mission capabilities, I touched every single one of those pillars. Every single time. Sometimes the comms pillar was a little skinny pillar, not a lot going on there, but it was always there. The cybersecurity one was somewhat neglected and ignored, but it was a big one. So I had to beef that up a little bit. Right now, everyone's focusing on AI. It's nice and big, and it's taking up all the space in the room. But guess what? Without edge and modern computing, I can't do the AI and the data management thing. So we use all 6 pillars when we build out new capabilities. We've been very, very successful at this, helping lots of organizations in government and also in corporations in the private sector. So much so that we caused some problems with it. And the problem stems from this. It's the way that we fund projects, not just in government, but also in the private sector. What happens is money is allocated to a certain project. And what we do is we send those out to bid with contractors, and they come back and they say, hey, yes, I can give you the hardware, the software, the services, all the training, and here's the nice tight bundle that I put it all in. And we go, yay, that's going to work. We budget it. It always goes over budget and lasts longer, right? These things tend to take 3 to 5 years. It's hard to estimate that long. But that's how we fund things. We fund things by project. That's very common. Well, what it does is it causes this problem here on your left. We create these technology silos. And these technology silos create data silos, create skills gaps, all these things. This is a very common problem. And about 4 years ago, I sat down with my team of solution architects, and we went, we got to fix this. This is a big problem because all of our customers are saying, great, Darren, you've come and helped us do this. How can we make it go faster? I need to add new capabilities to solution stacks much faster. I can't take 3 to 5 years to develop anything anymore. Things are moving too fast. So what we started looking at was what are some common foundational elements in the 6 pillars that I can build capabilities on over and over again. So now when I get a new project, that comes down the pipe, I can walk into like the commerce department And I can go in there and say, look, we've already built this other stuff here. We can build new capabilities on top of. I can cut your budget by a quarter, and we can have it delivered in 6 months. That's the goal. So we had to come up with what this common foundation looked like. And at Intel, what we did was we came up with this philosophy. If I can meet the government where they currently are, instead of always pretending like I need to build everything from scratch every time, if I can find out where they're currently at, then I can build on top of that. And if I can map it in a common way that I can use it across multiple projects, across multiple departments, that's even better. So we came up with this concept that we call GEAR, which stands for Government Enterprise Architecture Reference. So it's a common way of describing what their current environment is, both infrastructure, physical environment, their processes, their organizational structure, their strategies. If I have a common way of describing that, just describing it, not being prescriptive, just saying, this is what we think you have. Do you agree? Then we can identify it, we can start to understand it, we can unify across multiple verticals and horizontals in their organization so that they have a common way of talking and working with each other. And we can now capitalize on that by adding new capabilities, and then we can augment that with targeted technology and process improvements. That's the whole philosophy behind it. So instead of the mess that I have on the left, I have something a little bit more under control on the right. So now when a new feature comes in or we have a major shift in strategy, like in Department of Defense, there's shifting strategy all the time right now. I don't have to rebuild everything from scratch. I can build on top of. That's the idea behind it. We've been very successful with this approach in helping organizations, first off, see where they're currently at. And it looks like this. This is a high-level picture of what this architecture looks like, which is now becoming part of the Government Digital Transformation Architecture working group that I chair. And it's actually pretty simple when you think about it. You guys already know all this stuff because you already have it all in your organizations. There's 5 key, what I call architectures inside the transformation architecture. There's our strategic architecture on the top. That's, my strategy, my value chains, mission goals, all that stuff is up there. Then on the next layer down, I have organizational architecture and my process architecture. And then underneath that, I have physical architecture and digital architecture. Turns out that all 5 of these are extremely important. And a lot of times when we do engagements with organizations, we tend to miss 2 of these, and they're different every single time. Like, for example, when I go and I've been doing a lot of work with U.S. Census Bureau to help them re-architect their whole data strategy. They had a major snafu. It didn't help that COVID hit right as they were going out to do their census work. But the whole thing fell apart. It was a big mess. When I first engaged with them, I did not look at their physical architecture. And it turns out it ended up being very important. The physical architecture, for example, what are your locations? Where do you operate? Do you own buildings? It's not things that people think about, right? U.S. Census operates all over the United States. They have several hundred field offices. I didn't even recognize that when we first started talking. Once we got into it, I went, whoa, that changes a lot of things in the architecture that we have to pay attention to. So each one of these is very important to look at. Now people say, Darren, if you're sitting with an organization and you're going to work with them and you're going to map out their organization on this architecture, it's going to take months to do this work. And this is the beauty of the philosophy behind it. We go broad first. We go very broad. Let's look at every architecture in a very broad brush. Once we do that, we start understanding when we're talking to the organization we're trying to help, we start understanding where their pain points are. It's almost like you're in a therapy session. I call it a digital therapy, right? And they just start opening up. And we can capture all that stuff very quickly. In fact, we've developed a tool that we call the Gear Explorer that has a Gen AI backend on it. And it captures the conversation that you're having and starts mapping things out as you're talking. It's super cool. Super cool stuff. We're using our own technology, right? We talked about technology and process change. So I can quickly start mapping these things out, finding out where their pain points, and then go deep in the areas that I need to focus on. The key to this approach is that it gives us a way of seeing, without big, huge documentations, we can see what's going on in an organization very quickly. And I'll show you some diagrams of it. But here's our approach. I already mentioned this a little bit. We identify what they currently have, and we don't have to identify every single thing, right? That would take us forever. But we identify broadly, and then we can talk about the areas where they're having issues. And that happens typically when we go into understanding. As I dig deeper in with them, I can start understanding where their pain points, where their new capabilities that they want to deploy on top of what we've already identified. We uncover new things during the understand phase. Then the next one is unify, which happens just kind of organically when I'm talking to them. I have a model that describes their organization. Like I said before, I haven't done anything about prescription. I'm just capturing what they currently have. That's the key, right? When I get into capitalize, now I can start being a little prescriptive. For example, we had one customer, when we started looking at their digital architecture side, we found out that they had 3 different virtualization technologies they were using. OpenStack, VMware, and now I can't remember the third one, Nutanix. They were using all 3. And I went, why are you doing that? Well, this one organization, these engineers really like this technology over here, and these engineers like this one. And then, we decided to do open source at one time, so we did OpenStack too. And I said, and they're all in production? Do you know what your overhead cost is on keeping all those systems up and going? And they go, oh, wow. I said, let's cap. And then we get into augment. And this is the part that Intel pays me for, right? I want them to buy more chips. That's how we make money, is we sell chips, right? So eventually, hopefully, they want to augment their current infrastructure to become more digital. Let's get them some new technology. Maybe it's 10 to 12 years old. There's new technology, lower power, higher performance type things. That's where the augment comes in, okay? Sounds pretty simple, and in reality, it can be a little bit difficult, right? That's why we have solution architects that work with our sales team that goes out and engages with these people, because you have to know the right questions to ask, right? It's like a therapy session. It really is. We should change our names to technology therapist or something. So the benefits of this, we've seen huge benefits. The one organization that we've seen the most with probably right now is the U.S. Census Bureau. We've aligned strategically with their governance. We have re-engineered some of their data ingestion processes where we save them 240x. Incredible. They're now able to ingest much more data to have more accurate reports coming out of the U.S. Census Bureau, which is pretty incredible. And we did that through re-engineering some of their processes. We didn't introduce any new technologies. We just took this holistic view. We started looking at it and go, why do you do that way? Well, we've always done it that way. I go, well, couldn't we shift some things here and there? And so it was pretty incredible what we were able to do. And it hits a lot of these benefits of standardization, efficiency and reuse, cost reduction, all these things fit in there. Security, risk compliance, and design by, risk compliance by design. It's built in because now we have visibility into what's really going on. And then the last one, which is one we're working on right now with the U.S. Census Bureau as we're introducing generative AI into some of those processes, is talent enablement and workforce optimization. At first, when we showed the numbers to the executives at U.S. Census, they go, oh, we can let go a lot of people. I go, whoa, wait. No, you can't. Because you need those people to get the next 240x. So we need to train them. We need to train them how to do this and be more efficient instead of just pushing paper around like they had been before. Okay, so let me show you what some of these maps look like. Oh, good, the blue dots do show up. Sometimes I'm not quite sure which color to use. So in this example here, all we do is very simple. We drop a dot on the architecture on something that we found. Now, the tool that we use is a web-based tool, and if you hover over the dot, it tells you what tool that is. But we can also generate a PDF from here where there's a legend that tells you what the dot means, and you can see the tool and how they use it, and all that is described directly in like a big PDF. What I found is if you generate a 500-page PDF, not very many people read it. They don't read it at all. But if you give them a way of interacting with the data, they will use it. So we provide both because some organizations want a big PDF that no one reads. That tends to be government agencies, by the way. So this is a high-level picture. When I drill down into the next layer, in this example here, this is the digital architecture, right? Now I can get down into more detail. I can look at, oh, I've got a tool in AI ML services or workflow services. This organization has no security. This is not good, people, right? No security whatsoever. Obviously, we haven't finished this mapping yet because everyone has some security, right? So we go through each architecture. Digital architecture is all about our software stacks. You can see the major elements here. I've got an application layer, a data layer right here, the digital information management layer, or distributed information management layer, the service management layer, a software-defined infrastructure, and a physical layer down here. People go, well, Darren, that physical layer right there is an interesting layer because I have a whole physical architecture. Well, it turns out that they need to interact with each other. So I need what we call a minimal viable device in my physical layer. And I need to be able to somehow control the physical world with the digital world. So this is my interaction between those two. So that's an example. This next one here is a strategic architecture. You can see we've captured a lot. And these are still changing. People go, oh, Darren, you know, this is all rock solid. And I said, no. As I engage with organizations, I learn more. And what do? I change this, just ever so slightly. Because I'm constantly learning. Every time I engage with a new company, I learn something new. So I want to capture that as a best practice. Oh, you guys call it that? All these other people, oh, I like your name better. We're going to switch this name up, or we're going to make some changes to it, improve over time. So this model is in constant improvement cycle, which can be hard at times, right? Because people are like, yeah, but Darren, last year you said it was this, and now it's this. So we're being very careful on the changes. Most of the time, we're just improving the descriptions of the different layers in here. But as you can see here, there's nothing prescriptive. I'm not saying you have to do it this way. I'm trying to capture what you currently do. And I can also identify gaps. Like in this organization here, we couldn't find a clear mission and vision out of this organization. It exists, but no one really knew what it was. So we had an organization that was meandering and not knowing which direction they should go. So we could easily sit down with them and say, look, let's work on your mission and vision statement, instead of it just being in someone's head, right? So this helps us identify those gaps as well. Here's the process architecture. This one's really interesting. People go, how do you know, Darren, that you've got all of the right categories? And I said, well, I don't, except the bottom one here, which is called support processes. If you pick something that's not in the top ones, I'll just jam it into the support one because, it's support. It supports the upper part. The idea here, though, is that I've got governance and risk management that are controlling. They're the guardrails for innovation management and operational delivery. So as I build those things out, no one has given me one process yet that I can't put in one of those boxes yet. Right? We spent a lot of time building this one out. So I got tons of time left. I got 5 minutes left. I just briefly went over the high level of this because we can go really deep into each one of those architectures, as deep as you want. But I hope that you got from this something interesting, which was our approach. Our approach to help organizations through their digital transformation and the tools that we're using to help them help themselves move along. That's the goal there. Now, if you want to learn more about this stuff, I actually have a podcast called Embracing Digital Transformation. It's in its fifth year now. I can't believe it's 5 years. Just recently, I had my 100th download on my podcast. I was so happy about that. So please join us in listening. Also for my friends here in Saudi Arabia, about a year ago, I started broadcasting a newscast in Arabic for you guys, which is really fascinating. It has myself and my wife broadcasting the news in Arabic, and I don't speak Arabic. So I'll let you guys figure out how we pulled that one off. I'll say that we use some generative AI, but we do it in 8 different languages. We're using the technologies. We're using things. So it's been a lot of fun. So thank you guys for your time today.